Hello there. Welcome to today's lesson covering working with tables and columns in Microsoft Word. This lesson is called W5.11 Planner, and in it we will gain more practice working with tables to create a page from a homework planner. So I'm going to open up the instructions here, and you can see specifically we're going to be focusing on changing column widths, changing cell alignments, changing a row height, changing text direction, inserting an image into a table, and centering a table horizontally. So we're going to begin first by creating a new document. And while you bring that new document up and name it what you're supposed to name it, and get your header into place, I will go ahead and go through the overview with you, and you can be listening to that as you put your header in. Although word processing software automatically fits text into table cells with word wrap, it is often necessary to resize rows and columns to better accommodate the text inside them. A table can take on the look of a more graphic object on your page when you change cell alignment and text direction within the cells. In addition, clip art can be inserted and resized to become part of the design of your table. So what I would like for you to do at the moment is have your new Microsoft Word document up and ready to go. You will have named it W5.11 Planner and put in your own last name and first initial. You will have added your 4 lines of information in the header. And at that point, we will be ready to go. I'm going to double click here in the body of the document. And the first thing we're going to do is create a table with 4 columns and 11 rows. So our hint is to insert a table. Once again, like the last lesson, we can come up with the 4 columns, but it only goes to 8 rows. So instead of using this shortcut, we're going to say insert table, and we'll say number of columns is 4, and number of rows is 11, and then we can say OK. Remember that wherever you left your cursor is where it's going to install that table. So make sure it's not in another table or in a sentence somewhere. All right, so here we have our basic table, and this moves us down to the next page. And what you want to do is start entering this data. So daily planner for November 16. And you see it wraps around. You can just leave it like that and keep entering the data. And I'm going to speed dial to where I have the data already put in. And so when you are done, well, I should say you can pause this audio recording and fill in the rest of this data. You need to type it. Do not try and cut and paste it from the directions. It's not going to work. You do need to put the typing in. Once you're done with that, come back to this audio tutorial and hit play, and we'll discuss how to format this table. So once you come back and you have the data already entered in the table, you'll come down here to number 5, and we're going to apply the following formatting changes. The first is we're going to resize each column. So the first thing that they want us to do is the subject column needs to go out to 1.5. Now, as I'm typing this, I may have moved the width of these columns around a little bit. You see, if I hover over the vertical line in a table, my cursor changes and it allows me to move to accommodate the text. But I can also come up here and put my cursor just at the very top line of that table, and you see it turns into a down arrow. When it does that, I can click on it to select that column. And then let me widen this out just a little bit here. We'll need to go up to the tab for layout, table layout, not this layout button, but the one that's hidden here, table layout. And what that allows us to do, and I'm going to move this over a little bit so maybe we can have some more space here. What this allows us to do is see the width of this column. Well, I've selected the whole thing. It says it's at 2 inches right now, but our directions want us to make that column 1.5. It's the subject column. You see subject listed in here. So what I'll do is I'll change that width to 1.5 and hit enter, and you see it makes that table smaller. Then the assignment column, I'm also going to select from the top, and they want me to make that one 4 inches wide. So I'll enter a 4 and hit enter. And that makes it that much bigger. Now this column was left at 1.5. This one's at 4. And you can do more than a row more than one column at a time. You see the next two, the do column and the done column, do and done. I can select both of those columns at the same time. They have the same width. I'm just going to come up here and put that in there, 0.75, hit enter. And now I have very precise measurements for column widths. And that helps me control how things are going into the table. So the next thing we want to do is actually center the table horizontally on the page. It's fairly good there, being about the same size from each side of the page. Yours may have it a little differently. I think mine has already been formatted for that. But to do that, we need to go up under the table layout tab again, which is this. And we're going to go over here to properties. There's a few icons right here at the very beginning. I'm going to click on properties, and it brings up the table properties dialog box. And mine came up in the column button. You want to make sure that you're here in the table button. And we want to see that it is under the alignment in the center. Yours may be on the left, which would explain why you have more space on one side than the other, but it needs to be clicked on here in the center, and you see how it's moving, okay, in the little previews there. So make sure your alignment is center and then say okay. And if your table wasn't centered before, you'll see it shift, and there should be the same amount of space on each side of the page in the table. So that's how we center it directly in the middle of the page. The next thing they want us to do here on 5C on the second page is merge and center row 1. Now we did a little bit of this yesterday in the last lesson. Once again, remember I come out here to the left margin where my cursor changes into an arrow pointing toward the table. I select that row, so I have just row 1. And like it says, select all the cells in row 1 and then the table layout tab, which is where we're at. And I'm going to merge the cells together. Okay, so under merge, I'm going to say merge cells. And you see it just let the text flow all the way out into that one cell that it made. Okay, while we're in row 1, we're going to adjust the height of that row. So once again, as long as we have that whole row selected, then we're going to come back up here, and where we were dealing with the width of the columns, now we're going to come up here to the height. And in the directions, they say let's make the height 1/2 inch. So right now it's at 0.19 inches. We want to say 0.5 or 1/2 inch and hit enter. And you see that that makes that row 1/2 inch tall, which is exactly what we were looking for. Then we want to change the text in that row to 18 point. So here again, it's easy just to go ahead and select the row. You don't have to worry about coming in and selecting just the text. Just select the whole row. And we know that to change the font, we need to come back to the Home tab. And we can adjust the size of the font here with this drop-down menu. It's at 10, maybe 11 or 12 on yours. and we want to take it up to 18 point. Okay, that makes a difference. And also in 5E, it says center it horizontally and vertically. Now, normally we would just say horizontally, and you see it's centered from side to side. But you see there's a lot of space there on the bottom. How do we go about doing that? It is not under the Home tab. We need to go back to our layout, table layout, and over here, just past where we do the measurements, is this 9-patch of different icons. And you see that right now, as I'm clicked in the table, it's centered, but it's in the top. Okay, if I wanted to center it and put it on the bottom, I would click down here. We want to center this not only horizontally, but also vertically. So if I click in the middle, it will put it right in the middle of that cell, the combined cell. So the next thing we want to do is to, in fact, shade row 1 to light gray. And here again, I can make sure the whole thing is selected. And remember, shading is going to be under Table Design. There's our paint can. And we're going to go with a light gray. I'm going to point out to you here that if you let your cursor rest on any of these colors, it will actually give you a percentage. So if it starts at white, and you come down here, it's 5% darker than white, and then 15% darker than white, and 25% darker than white. And all of these work in those kind of increments. It takes a base color, blue accent 1, and then it says, okay, this is 80% lighter, this is 60% lighter, all the way down here to 50% darker. Sometimes the instructions will tell you a very specific color. Blue accent 1, darker by 50%. Gray accent 3, darker by 50%. For this lesson, I am just going to say light gray. So you pick a light gray, either one of these or one of those, it's fine, as long as it is light gray. And then, and you see automatically now, our table is starting to look very professional. The next one down is going to be bold the column titles. Well, the column titles are right here. It tells us what's in each column. So we'll just go ahead and you can come up to home and hit bold here, or you can just hit Command B and it will bold those for you. We're also going to adjust the height of the second row to 1/2 inch. So we come back up to the table layout button. We see the height is at 0.19 again. We're going to make this 0.5 and hit enter. And you see that it's given us that space again. And this time adjusting, let's see, row 2, center row 2 horizontally and vertically again. Do you remember how to do that? We come back up to this 9-patch and we say center them. And you see in each one, it centers it within that cell. It is so handy. So next we'll come up and we'll say adjust the height of the last row to 1.5 inches. So here's our last row. And they want the height of that one to be 1.5 inches tall. And I'll hit enter. And now you see it is significantly taller. So what we're going to do with that, once it's 1.5 inches tall, is here under 5K, they say merge the cells of that last row. Well, I've already got this whole row selected, so I can just come up here and say merge cells. And now you see I have plenty of room for the notes, but they want us to change the direction of the word notes. So in this case, I'm going to click on notes here, and I will come up to just past this 9-patch of icons. It says text direction. And with that word selected, I can then turn the text. Now the text is going from the top to the bottom. If I click it again, it will say from the bottom to the top. And this is the one that they're trying to get us to do. It's rotated 90 degrees. We can read the directions, change the text in the notes row so that the text notes is rotated 90 degrees to the right. So you select the row and then the table layout tab and the text direction icon. Okay. And then we're going to change the size of that word, once again under the home tab, from 10 point to 18 point, so it really stands out. You see, change the text notes to 18 point. So now you have plenty. If you have this typed out, you can print it every week, and then you can say when it's done, and you can write notes in it as you go. And that is the end of 5.11 Planner. What I would do, since you typed this, make sure, first of all, that you hit Command S if you haven't recently to make sure it's saved. And then go up under the Review tab and run the spell check, okay? If it stops on any of these, really look and make sure that you have everything spelled correctly. Don't just hit Ignore or Change. Make sure it is the correct word. And then you're going to save it again, Command S and then Command W, and send it back up to Google Classroom. I did want to remind you, those of you in my class, that when you go into Google Classroom under Classwork, if you forget, I'm going to make this wide enough here so you can see the topics list. If you forget how to take something out of Google Classroom or turn in an assignment, right here under Need to Know, don't forget that I have put these notes for you. How do I download a file from Google Classroom? There's a short 5-minute video to show you how to do that. How do I turn in an assignment to Google Classroom? There's a short video here on how to do that. And make sure that you watch those so that you have it down and that you're doing it correctly. Once you've done that, you can return to Google Classroom and the assignment and get it turned in.